Have you ever taken a photo where, even though you have a good subject and great light, it still feels off? Well, the issue may center around the elements you're including or not including in your image, and the solution for that is mastering the art of composition. So let's dive in and see how we can bring you up to speed and help you develop this essential skill set. I'm Alvin Turner from Providence Photography, and whether you're just starting out or looking to refine your skills, understanding composition is key to creating the type of images that can captivate your audience. So to help you get there, we'll break down some fundamental rules of composition like the rule of thirds, leading lines, and framing. You'll learn how to guide your viewer's eye, create depth, and enhance the overall impact of your photos. By the end of this video, you'll have a set of techniques that can be used to elevate your photography, so grab your camera and let's get started. When it comes to composition within the context of photography, I think the first lesson we need to learn is that it's not the mountain that has to move, it's me. You see, in photography, there are times when the subject remains constant, whether it's a city skyline or a single flower. The responsibility to find the right angle, the perfect light, or the most compelling perspective falls on the photographer. Sticking with the example of a mountain, it's not going to shift or change its position just because we want a better shot. Instead, we have to adapt, maneuver, and sometimes even climb to discover the viewpoint that best captures its beauty. In other words, composition is as much about our movement and perspective as it is about the subject we aim to capture. Composition is how we arrange the different parts of our photos to create appealing and cohesive images. These parts include the subject, background, foreground, lines, shapes, colors, and lighting. Think of it as setting up the stage for a play. You want everything in the right place to tell the story clearly and beautifully. Ultimately, mastering composition is about being intentional with every shot. It's about taking the time to thoughtfully consider each element within your frame and how they interact with one another. This mindfulness can transform ordinary pictures into art, making each photograph a powerful means of communication. Remember, the mountain won't move, but you can. Embrace the challenge of finding that perfect composition, and you'll see your photography reach new heights. Now that we understand what composition is and why it matters, let's dive into some basic composition rules that can instantly improve your photography. First up, we have the rule of thirds, which is one of the most well-known and widely used composition techniques. Imagine taking your frame and placing two equally spaced horizontal lines and two equally spaced vertical lines, thereby dividing your frame into 9 equal parts. The idea is to place the most important elements of your scene along these lines or at their intersections. This technique helps create balance and interest in your photos. For example, if you're photographing a landscape, try placing the horizon along the top or bottom third of the frame rather than in the middle. Or if you're shooting a portrait, position your subject's eyes along one of the top intersections. This simple guideline can make your photos more engaging and dynamic. Now, you might wonder, why does the rule of thirds work so well? The answer lies in how our brains perceive visual information. The rule of third works because it taps into the way we naturally view images. When we look at a photo, our eyes don't typically rest in the center. Instead, they are drawn to certain points of interest that create a more balanced and engaging experience. By placing key elements along the grid lines or at the intersections, we create a sense of harmony and balance that feels pleasing to the eye. One reason this technique is effective is that it avoids the static and sometimes dull effect of centering everything in the frame. Centering can work in certain scenarios, but more often than not, it can make a photo feel flat and less dynamic. The rule of thirds, on the other hand, introduces asymmetry, which adds movement and interest to the composition. Another reason the rule of third works is due to how it mimics the way we naturally observe our surroundings. Our eyes tend to follow a pattern of movement that aligns with the grid, moving from one point of interest to another. This creates a natural flow within the image, making it easier for the viewer to navigate and understand the scene. By aligning subjects with these points, we create more tension, energy, and interest in the composition. It's a simple yet powerful tool that can drastically improve the quality of your photos. In essence, the rule of third works because it creates a balanced, aesthetically pleasing composition that feels natural and engaging to the viewer. It's a fundamental technique that every photographer should have in their toolkit. Next, let's dive into leading lines. Leading lines are powerful compositional tools that can guide the viewer's eye through a photograph and direct it towards the main subject. This helps to establish a sense of direction and flow within an image, making it more engaging and easier to navigate. They can be anything from roads, rivers, and fences to shadows, architectural features, or even lines formed by light and shadow. And by positioning these lines strategically, you can guide the viewer's attention to key elements in your photo. One of the reasons leading lines are so effective is that they add depth and perspective to your images. Lines that converge towards a point on the horizon or the main subject can create a three-dimensional effect in a two-dimensional photograph. This not only draws the viewer into the scene, but also emphasizes scale and distance, enhancing the overall impact. Leading lines can also convey different moods or narratives. Straight lines often suggest stability and order, while curved lines can evoke a sense of movement and fluidity. By carefully choosing and positioning these lines, you can enhance your storytelling aspect of your photo. These lines don't always have to be obvious or dominant. Subtle lines like the edge of a table or the alignment of objects can create a cohesive flow that guides the viewer's gaze naturally. Diagonal lines, in particular, are dynamic and can lead the viewer's eye across the image in an engaging way. To make the most of leading lines, be observant and intentional with your framing. Look for natural or man-made lines in your environment and think about how they can enhance your composition. Sometimes simply changing your perspective or angle can significantly influence how these lines shape the overall image. Finally, let's talk about framing. Framing is a technique where you use elements within the scene to create a frame around your subject. This can be anything from doorways and windows to trees and arches. Framing helps focus attention on the main subject and adds layers to the composition, giving the image a sense of depth and context. And it works because it naturally draws the viewer's eye to the subject within the frame. By isolating the subject, it creates a clear focal point and can make your image more visually striking. Framing can also help to create a sense of scale and perspective, emphasizing the importance of the subject within its environment. One of the key advantages of using framing is that it adds depth to your photos. By having elements in the foreground act as a frame, you create a three-dimensional feel, making the viewer feel like they are looking into a scene rather than just at a flat image. This technique can make your images more immersive and engaging. Framing can also enhance the narrative of your photo. For instance, shooting through a doorway can give the impression of a secret glimpse into another world, while using tree branches to frame a landscape can add a natural and organic feel to the image. These frames can tell a story and provide context that adds to the overall composition. Framing doesn't have to be obvious or rigid. Subtle framing elements like shadows or blurred foreground objects can create a soft frame around your subject, adding to the mood and atmosphere of the photo. The key is to be creative. Now that we've covered some basic composition rules, let's move on to a few advanced techniques that can take your photography to the next level. These techniques include symmetry and patterns and depth and layers. Symmetry and patterns in photography are like the silent composers of visual harmony. They bring a sense of balance and rhythm to your compositions, transforming even the simplest subjects into something extraordinary. It's about finding order in chaos and capturing the natural beauty of repetition. Symmetry occurs when parts of your composition mirror each other, creating a balanced and proportional image. This technique naturally draws the eye, making your photos look neat and visually appealing. Let's explore the different types of symmetry and how they can enhance your photography. Vertical symmetry splits the image from top to bottom. Think of a serene lake mirroring the sky above. The water acts as a natural dividing line, creating a perfect balance that calms the viewer. When shooting horizontal symmetry, aim for a day with still water to capture that flawless reflection. Use a tripod to ensure your horizon line is perfectly straight, avoiding any tilt that could disrupt the symmetry. Horizontal symmetry divides the scene into equal halves from left to right. Imagine standing in front of a grand cathedral, its facade mirrored perfectly on either side of its central axis. This type of symmetry gives a sense of stability and strength. To capture vertical symmetry, position yourself directly in front of the subject. Small adjustments in your stance can break the symmetry, so take your time and find the perfect spot. Look for elements that naturally align, like doorways, windows, or trees. Radial symmetry is another fascinating type. It involves elements arranged around a central point, like the petals of a flower or the spiraling steps of a circular staircase. This kind of symmetry radiates outward, creating a sense of unity and coherence. When photographing radial symmetry, center your subject in the frame and look for a perspective that highlights the repetitive elements extending from the middle. This can be particularly striking in nature, where radial symmetry often appears organically. Reflective symmetry, as the name suggests, involves reflections. This is commonly found in water bodies or glass surfaces, creating a mirror-like effect that doubles the visual elements. Reflective symmetry can add depth and interest to your photos, making them more dynamic and engaging. To capture reflective symmetry, seek out calm days with minimal wind for water reflections. Urban reflections, look for puddles or modern glass buildings that can reflect the surrounding environment. Patterns, on the other hand, are all about repetition and rhythm. They can be found everywhere. Lines on a staircase, tiles on a floor, or the leaves on a tree. Patterns create a sense of order and predictability, making your photos visually appealing and engaging. When you fill the frame with a pattern, it creates a sense of infinity, leading the viewer to imagine the repetition continuing beyond the edges of the photo. Breaking the pattern can be just as powerful as capturing it. Introducing an element that disrupts the repetition, like a red apple among green ones or a single open window among closed ones, can create a focal point and add interest to the image. This contrast makes the photo more compelling by drawing attention to the break in the pattern. Using symmetry and patterns in your photography can lead to visually compelling images that captivate and engage your audience. Whether you find them in nature, architecture, or everyday objects, recognizing and incorporating these elements into your compositions can add a unique and artistic touch to your photos. Now that we've explored various composition techniques, let's delve into how you can practice these skills with a purpose and analyze your work to keep improving. Practicing with a purpose is essential for truly mastering composition. It's about being mindful and intentional every time you pick up your camera. Instead of just snapping random photos, focus on specific techniques during each session. By concentrating on one technique at a time, You gain a deeper understanding of its impact and learn how to use it effectively. So, grab your camera, set specific goals, and head out with the intention of mastering one composition technique at a time. Then take the time to review and reflect on your work. This cycle of practice and analysis is the key to continuous improvement and becoming more skilled and a thoughtful photographer. By embracing the process of deliberate practice and thoughtful analysis, you can refine your skills and elevate your photographic compositions. It's about taking the time to understand what makes a composition work and applying that knowledge in a mindful way. Each step in this journey brings you closer to mastering the art of photography, one thoughtful click at a time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share. Don't forget to subscribe to Providence Photography for more tips and tutorials on improving your craft. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Once again, appreciate your watching.